Hello, everyone, and I hope everybody's having a fabulous Wednesday. Welcome to Women Winning Wednesdays. I'm Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning attorney, and I'm the owner of the law offices of Elsa W. Smith, where our mission is to empower women through estate planning. Again, I want to welcome you to another edition of Women Winning Wednesdays. You know, the mission of this program is to give you glimpses of what an empowered woman is and what she needs to win. And we do that through our guests and educational content. By the way, since we're streaming on StreamYard, this is just a reminder to give StreamYard permission for us to see your comments. And you can do that by going to streamyard.com/Facebook. Say hi, let us know where you're listening from. And by the way, if you catch this on the replay, just make sure to put #replay in the comments. So we have got a lot to cover today. As you know by the promo, the topic that we're going to cover today is what to tell your kids about estate planning. And you know, you may have heard me say more than once that we need to normalize discussions about estate planning at the dinner table. You know, we need to educate our kids about estate planning. Okay, but what if your kids are very young, like say preteens? You know, what if they're teenagers? What if they're adults, right? Should what and how much you discuss differ depending on the age? Well, sure. So today, I'm going to actually break that down. At least they're my suggestions about what estate planning issues you really should talk about with your child. And I'm going to break it down depending on what their age group is. Now, you know, sharing details of your estate plans with young kids, and we're going to start off with talking about young kids. You know, it may not be appropriate, right? For a number of reasons. You know, a preschooler doesn't need to know about your end of life wishes or, you know, who you've appointed as a trustee. Okay. But if your kids are old enough to understand death, they could be comforted to learn just a little bit about what plans you've put in place. You know, as a parent, you know better than most what your child is able to understand, you know, because a child's ability to learn and absorb information can really vary greatly, even within the same age group, right? Without your guidance, though, they can bottle up their anxieties, you know, around death. And not that, you know, all we ever talk about is death when you talk about estate planning, but it is a component of it. You know, if they don't have your guidance, they can jump to wrong conclusions based on what they see, you know, out there in the culture, right? Learning about death and the fact that it can and will eventually touch their family, you know, can be pretty frightening for a child, especially a young child. You know, some experts say that having an open conversation, offering reassurance and giving truthful, age-appropriate answers is the way to go. Now, like I said before, what may be right for one child may not be right for another. You know, I grew up, and many of you probably did as well, during a time when parents shared nothing, zip, zero, nada, with young kids about quote unquote adult issues. You know, you're really kept in the dark. So you've got, you know, an entire, you know, generation that has that philosophy. But what we're seeing now, and of course, you know, listen, I'm not a psychologist or a child therapist, but I do recommend that you at least meet with a professional if you're not sure how to start a conversation with kids about your will, or, or end of life issues. And you know what? Even if you are sure, reach out anyway. And I'm sure that I had a therapist on the show not too long ago, and I'm sure that she would agree. Even if you think reach out anyway. Because if there's one thing that that we talked about on that particular show, is that it's okay to reach out for advice, from an expert. We've got to get to a place where it's normal to reach out to professionals, especially for mental health or therapy issues. So I'm going to ask the parents who are listening, do you have a hard time finding the words to start a conversation about your final wishes with your kids? Let me know in the comments. If you see me looking back and forth, it's because I've got more than one more than one screen open at a time. So now, okay, we've talked about, the fact that you need to be a bit more delicate, of course, when you're, considering talking to very young kids. Now let's switch a bit and talk about how you approach these issues with your teenagers, right? Now, teenagers, they're on the verge of entering adulthood, right? And they can, for the most part, handle some honest conversations about estate planning. Now, in addition to, say, who would be their guardian if necessary, you may want to consider talking to teenagers about the financial component of your estate plan. Have you taken steps to make sure that the kids are going to be able to afford college, even if you died tomorrow, right? If you've set up any trusts that the kids would benefit from, who have you put in charge of managing the money? And when would the kids be able to access those funds? And how would they responsibly manage it? Another way to begin the conversation, again, we're talking about teenagers, is to help them begin their own estate planning steps. Now, if your teen is approaching, if your child's approaching 18, now would be the perfect time to discuss having essential estate planning documents. What am I referring to? Examples are a power of attorney and an advanced healthcare directive. Just a couple as an example, or as examples. Excuse me. It can love when excuse me one second. Love when that happens when you're alive. It can it can also make sense for you to, this is really funny. It can also make sense to talk to your teens about where important documents are located, right? What I mean are copies of your will, your excuse me again, trusts, paperwork, advanced medical directives, plans for your funeral, in any account paperwork, for any insurance policies that you have. Now, if these documents are kept somewhere inside your home, say in a fireproof safe, and something happens to you, your teenagers may be asked to find, to locate where these documents are. So parents, I'm going to ask you another question. Have you started a conversation with your teenager? Will you commit to talking with them about your estate plan before the end of this month? Now, today is July 21st, so we have about 10 more days before the end of the month. It can be as easy as telling them where the important documents are should you become ill. Again, only you know how emotionally mature your teenagers are to handle this information. Here's another suggestion. How about introducing your teen to your financial advisor. Now, this is a way I believe that we can change the generational narrative, something that I've referred to often on the show and in speaking engagements. Perhaps that advisor can provide, age appropriate materials to put your teen on the path to being a financially responsible adult, right? So we've talked about very young kids. We've talked about now things you should consider talking about with your teenager. Now let's talk about your adult kids, right? Now, ideally, you would feel comfortable in discussing, all elements of your estate plans with your adult children. Now, chances are that you probably have given them roles, assigned them roles to play in your estate plan. So things that you'll want to discuss with them include where everything is, where everything is located, right? Make sure your kids know the current location of all your estate planning and end of life documents. You should also keep, at least if you're going to keep them at home, keep one set in a fireproof safe. Include this contact information, contact information. Oh goodness, contact information for your attorney and financial advisor. And the next thing you want to talk about with your adult talk. This is really a kooky Wednesday. Obviously, I'm tripping over my words, but you also want to tell your adult kids who you've appointed to do what. Now, if you've chosen one of your kids to be the personal representative, that's what we call it here in Maryland, of your state, you've probably spoken to them already about this. Now, make sure that all of your kids know about this decision and any other roles that you have appointed them to fill, right? And as a side issue, and I've discussed this in other videos, and you should visit my YouTube channel at Elsa W. Smith Law to view other videos, other estate planning videos where I talk about putting the right people in the right roles, right? And how important that is. So make sure you go ahead and do that. The next thing you want to talk to your adult kids about is how you'll pay for long-term care. Nursing home care costs are at least a few $100s a day on average, right? If you someday need that level of care and you've got no means to pay for it yourself, your kids may have to step in and help. So talk to them about your plans and how you've prepared, for this situation. Do you have long-term care insurance? And if so, what is it going to cover? Do you plan to pay out of pocket from an account that you created for that purpose, for that long-term care? Or are you going to rely on Medicaid to fund your care? The other thing you want to talk about is your end of life wishes, right? You've probably noticed, you've probably recorded your end of life wishes during the estate planning process. And your kids may find all of that information with the rest of your estate planning documents. Yet and still, it's still a good idea to talk through those wishes with your kids and talking about those requests and the reasoning behind them could help your kids prepare for what might happen, during your final days. And guys, if you happen to hear the dog in the background, my apologies. It's one of the things about going live on air. We've got a storm coming and the dog's nervous, so my apologies. Going back to what I was talking about, your end of life wishes, just make sure that you discuss that with them. And then lastly, talk to them about their own estate plans. One of the reasons to talk to your kids about estate plan is to get them thinking about their own wishes, right? Now, while talking about about their plans, ask them if they've started the estate plan process and let them know that it's not a process that you put off until you're wealthy or until you're retired. And by failing and not starting the process now, they're actually going to cause confusion and conflict among those family members that remain. You know, estate planning is one of the ways that you show your kids just how much you care, quite frankly. And it's also a way that we will change, I believe, the generational narrative in communities of color as it relates to estate planning. So we talked about what to tell your kids regarding estate planning in 3 different age ranges: when they're very young, when they're teens, and of course, when they're adults. Sharing or discussing your estate plan with your children provides, it provides a valuable opportunity, to connect. And experts tell us that, a person's attitudes about money says a lot about his or her values. Sharing with your kids what money means to you, why you're talking to them about it, is going to help them honor your memory. Here's an example. Knowing if they knew that a life insurance you took out was to fund a child's, first home purchase, or perhaps to offset college tuition costs, that's really special, and that's part of your legacy, right? So we've talked, I've given you a lot of good information. Don't worry if you didn't get it all. This will all be in the replay. Some of you may be listening by phone, in the car. Hopefully you're not taking notes while driving. But this will all be on my website, on my YouTube channel at Elsa W. Smith Law. And by the way, if you're ready, I should say, to start getting your estate planning affairs in order, I want to offer you a free resource. It's my free 21-point estate planning checklist. And you can go to my website at elsawsmithlaw.com/checklist. elsawsmithlaw.com/checklist. It's free. Get the checklist, use it to get yourself organized. And really, I hope that this inspires you not only to start having a conversation with your kids, but, to get your affairs in order. Share this video with those that you care about, friends, and most importantly, start talking with your kids. Don't keep them in the dark, okay? Now, I want to really thank you all for joining me on this episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. I especially want to send a thank you, a heartfelt thank you to, there's some of you, I know you follow me each week. You tell me so, and all I can say is just thank you. You can't see that, but there you go. There's a heart. I appreciate your support so much. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. And the topic again is what to tell your kids about estate planning. If you need assistance with your estate plan, I want to invite you to contact my office, the law offices of Elsa W. Smith. We serve Maryland and the District of Columbia. You can contact us at 410-995-7719. 410-995-7719. And make sure, go to my YouTube channel at Elsa W. Smith Law, visit, subscribe, get all that free content, and share it. And listen, I'll see you on the next week's episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. I'm Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning attorney. Thank you so much for watching, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.